Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering FBI surrendering to Trump, providing 5,000 names of agents who worked on January 6 cases. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. I can't tell you why there are FBI agents that are resistant to turning over to the President of the United States information on what they did on a specific case or on several cases. There's only one president at a time, and this particular president really seems to need to know who did what on the January 6 cases. He is giving people an opportunity to come completely clean, and they should appreciate that. 5,000 agents have already turned their names over. Some agents are anonymously trying to sue to block their names from coming out and to avoid accountability for what they've done. From fake news CNN, FBI turns over names of 5,000 employees who worked on January 6 cases to Trump Justice Department as agents sue. And of course, it's not the Trump Justice Department, it's the Justice Department. There's no privilege to say, look, I don't like the political leadership here. I take a paycheck from this federal government. I don't really like this political leadership, so maybe if I like the next political leadership, I'll respond to you guys. No, you work for these people. They are elected. They are duly elected. You're going to respond to them and give them what they're asking for, or you're going to be fired for noncompliance. That's why they had to fill out the applications. I'm sure there are still some guys out there that are trying to hide out and see if they can get away with not responding. Because there really were a lot of FBI agents that went a little over the top with respect to raiding people's houses who weren't even involved in a violent crime of any sort. January 6th was really not a good situation, and the way it was followed up with was to make a political point of don't oppose the people who are in power, and if you do, regardless of how we got there, we're going to punish you and your entire family. The FBI really got out of control on this stuff. And for the people that acted inappropriately, of course, they need to be held accountable. We have to have the rule of law. As all political parties like to say, no one is above the law. FBI officials have complied with demands to provide the Justice Department with a list of thousands of employees who worked on investigations related to the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. The demand has caused some consternation among FBI employees who fear it's meant to amass a list of personnel for possible termination by the Trump administration. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove, in a Friday memo with the subject line termination, had given FBI officials a noon deadline on Tuesday to submit the names of thousands of agents and analysts. Bove previously ordered the firing of 8 senior FBI officials just so they knew where he was coming from, including those who oversaw cyber, national security, and criminal investigations. More than 5,000 names were submitted, according to sources. There are more than 13,000 agents and 38,000 total FBI employees. There are analysts as well. 5,000 is probably not the whole number. The whole number is probably closer to 7,000 or 8,000. And they can run, but they can't hide. And if that's not enough to make them crazy, officials dispatched by Elon Musk have been seated at FBI headquarters. Musk has headed up efforts by President Donald Trump's newest form, Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. But several FBI employees on Tuesday sued the Justice Department, accusing it of violating the Constitution and privacy laws by demanding that agents complete a survey allegedly designed to purge bureau personnel. As if the FBI management doesn't have the right to ask questions of its employees because we don't like having to answer these questions. We'll just kind of say it's unconstitutional. So you guys are going to just run around independently and do whatever you want and don't worry about it. As long as you say it's protecting the Constitution, you can just kind of do whatever you want and we won't have any oversight. I don't think it's really going to work out. Now in DC, they do have a lot of DC judges, and that's a tight community with the DOJ, and they do protect their own. Ultimately, though, they're of course going to lose because they need to be held accountable to someone. You can't just say, I'm an FBI agent, so I get to do whatever I want. I have no accountability to any of my supervisors. That's not really tenable, guys. The agents want a federal judge to block the Trump administration from publishing or releasing the surveys or any information included in their answers. Now, keep in mind, the President of the United States will make all decisions on classification or releasing information to the public, and the judiciary has no right to tell the President what he can or can't make public. They were all very happy to publish websites releasing information even on the DOJ's webpage, and that has since been taken off, of January 6th defendants so that people could target them and their families. Quote, the very act of compiling lists of persons who worked on matters that upset Donald Trump is retaliatory in nature, intended to intimidate FBI agents and other personnel and to discourage them from reporting any future malfeasance by Donald Trump and his agents, according to the lawsuit. They can report whatever they want to report. They're not going to withhold information or control information released by the president. The president's actually elected by the United States, not hired as an FBI agent. The authority within the President of the United States is given to him by the election from the people. It's really a tremendous amount of authority because it's difficult to become the President of the United States. You've got to get people to actually vote for you. And in Trump's case, you've got to avoid lawsuits, assassination attempts, all kinds of things. In addition to winning the election, when they replace the other candidate with somebody at the last minute, like Donald Trump did all that stuff. That's why he has this authority. It's not because of the haircut. The survey agents were required to fill out including questions about their positions at the Bureau and specific roles in January 6th investigations, including whether they executed arrests, participated in grand jury investigations, or testified at trials, according to a copy of the survey included in the lawsuit. The lawsuit was brought by several anonymous FBI employees as a class action complaint. The effort to fire anyone involved in Trump-related probes has been slowed in part by pushback from agents, including some who are working with new administration officials, pushing for the cultural changes at FBI headquarters that Kash Patel, Trump's pick for FBI director, had promised. Groups representing current and former agents reached out to congressional Republicans to urge the White House to abide by Patel's promise in his Senate hearing last week that agents wouldn't face political retribution for working on cases they were assigned. It's very cute to call accountability political retribution, but it doesn't actually work because what you guys did at the FBI was not necessarily political retribution against Trump supporters. You had your own reasons for doing things, and that's okay, but now other people with other points of view are coming in, and they're not going to have any kind of political retribution, but they are going to have some sense of these are the kind of people that we do or don't want in our FBI. And they have civil service protections, and that's terrific. They may be entitled to make an argument in a lawsuit to say, I want to get paid if Kash Patel fires me or if Trump's people fire me. But just because you have a civil claim, it doesn't mean that the FBI isn't out of your control as an individual agent. As an agent, you report to your superior, and your superior will decide whether or not you will work in that organization. If you have a financial claim, you can make that through a civil lawsuit. And you might even get that claim certified. You may even get it approved and paid off on. But it doesn't mean you're going to still be in the organization. You're going to be out. Bove's Friday memo, which came after the 8 firings of senior officials had already taken place, officially laid out what appears to be the process that Patel described in his testimony. Quote, upon receipt of the requested information, the Office of the Deputy Attorney General will commence a review process to determine whether any additional personnel actions are necessary, according to Bove. FBI employees who for months have braced for massive changes with Trump's election victory have been surprised at the attempts to punish agents and analysts who don't have a choice on which cases they are assigned. Last month, the Justice Department fired more than a dozen officials who worked on the federal criminal investigations into Trump. A letter from Acting Attorney General James McHenry to the officials said they could not be trusted to faithfully implement Trump's agenda because they prosecuted Trump. And a lot of the people who worked on those cases did volunteer for those cases. They were well compensated, and they were also looking for a bump in title and rank by doing these kinds of cases. They monetized these cases. Like many in law enforcement, the FBI workforce generally leans conservative. And in the aftermath of January 6th, many agents expressed reluctance at being involved in the Capitol riot cases, complaining the response was heavy-handed. Oh, really? Because we didn't see any of them go public. Literally not one of them went public that I saw. And even at this late date, if they want to go public and say, hey, you know what? I was involved in this case. It was absolutely wrong. I felt I would lose my job. I wouldn't be able to feed my family. I was forced to do this, but the administration prior was completely inappropriate with this and they should be held accountable. Hey, let's hear you. Go on YouTube and do that. Do a live stream. Or maybe do an interview on Fox, whatever you want. Send a press release. Do it anonymously. Get together with 25 other agents or 2 other agents, make a public statement anonymously if you want to, but you better start speaking up because if you don't speak up, you're going to have a problem. Because already, very few people feel badly for the FBI agents. Some agents in recent years have complained about the growth in ranks of management at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., and the focus on cases run from Washington. But even among those who have chafed at FBI leadership, the move to conduct a broader purge has been shocking, according to current and former agents. On Monday, a group of advocacy organizations representing federal law enforcement officers urged congressional leaders to prevent the Trump administration from purging career FBI officials. The top agent in the FBI's New York field office, meanwhile, told his colleagues that he's digging a foxhole to protect them. As if that's going to work. Look, whoever served our country, they are amazing people, and I have a lot of appreciation for them, but that doesn't mean whatever they do is going to be accepted. And trying to, quote, dig a metaphorical foxhole or whatever and protect people who did wrong or whose behavior needs to be reviewed by current management, let's just put it that way. No reason to demonize anyone and say they did something wrong. Let's see what happens once all of their actions are reviewed. But you're not going to dig any foxholes and protect yourself from management from the federal government. Not when that's your employer. The FBI Agents Association said this, quote, do not resign or offer to resign. According to an email they sent to their members, also obtained by CNN. Quote, while we would never advocate for physical noncompliance, you need to be clear your removal is not voluntary. Separately, lawyers for prosecutors and FBI agents called the possible dismissal of employees who worked on Trump-related investigations a, quote, violation of due process rights and threatened legal action in a letter to senior DOJ officials on Sunday night. In the meantime, if you follow the Trump cases, it was very clear they were desperate to violate his due process rights because if Trump got any due process rights, all of these cases would have fallen apart, especially in the DC case. Trump was not even allowed to generate his own discovery. They gave him no time to generate discovery. They wouldn't even give him access to the people who were involved in the case that was prepared against him. He was given 12 million pages of documents with not even enough time to go through those documents. That's what a violation of due process is. And their only excuse for doing that was they wanted to throw him off track and get him prosecuted and convicted before the election, which they're not supposed to be doing whatsoever. Quote, if you proceed with terminations and or public exposure of terminated employees' identities, we stand ready to vindicate their rights through all available legal means, according to their letter. The letter warns that should names of the agents become public, they would be subject to immediate risk of doxing, swatting, harassment, or possibly worse. Okay, but all of that did happen to the January 6th defendants. So we have to kind of get a perspective here on what are we going to have in terms of fairness to all parties. But so far, the most passionate response has been from James Denny, the top leader of the FBI's New York field office, who told his staff he's preparing to dig in to defend them. Here's what Denny said in an email. Quote, I still remember the first time I dug a foxhole in the Marines back in 1993. I had nothing more than an E-tool, entrenching tool, that I carried around everywhere, which was a mini 2-foot-long shovel. I dug with that damn thing all day long to build myself a 2-foot by 2-foot hole in the hard ground, about 5 feet deep. It sucked, but it worked. That foxhole provided me the protection I needed for the battle that was to come, and when the bullets flew, it was worth the effort. Today, we find ourselves in the middle of a battle of our own, as good people are being walked out of the FBI, and others are being targeted because they did their jobs in accordance with the law and FBI policy. On a day like today, I find myself surfing for my old E-tool, ready to put in the sweat and effort to dig that foxhole, as I have the feeling that I need to do right by this office. I will support each and every one of you with whatever personal decision you make. But I'm sticking around to defend you, your work, your families, and this team we call the flagship. Time for me to dig in. What this creative person and the rest of the FBI are trying to tell people is, look, we just followed orders. Whatever we do is constitutional because we followed orders. Well, it actually does not work that way. When people take actions on behalf of the government, they do have to consider if what they're doing is or isn't appropriate. And it may be incredibly inconvenient to be given an order that's an unlawful order and then to have to follow that. According to Julie Kelly, who covers this on X, a lot of the FBI agents and analysts that worked on these Trump cases and FBI-related cases for January 6th did so with a lot of enthusiasm, not with being forced to do those cases. I've also seen some of these people, some of the prosecutors on interview shows, and they've kind of joked and giggled about having worked on so many January 6th cases. And, that's okay. But now it's time for accountability. And you can say you want to hide and you want your names to be anonymous and you don't want your names released. But ultimately, that will be up for the president to decide, either the president directly or for his appointed cabinet members to decide. What I expect to see is a cleaned out Department of Justice, a cleaned out FBI, getting rid of all the people who did political prosecution work, so that when Trump gets his team together and he says, okay, look, we need an honest country. We need to know what happened in the 2020 elections. We need to know what happened during the last few years. We need to know what happened with all the political prosecutions that the FBI and the DOJ both participated in. Go deal with that. He needs a brand new culture at the FBI and the DOJ to deal with that. He needs the right cabinet officials, but he also needs the bad people out and new good people in those organizations to get things done. We're going to see a very large purge at the FBI and at what's left of the DOJ. And the people that are not fired will be sent to the border to protect America. That's when the interesting stuff starts to happen. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you. And if you want to support this channel and help me make even more videos, click the join link and become a member today.